Let's get started. It's 1:30. This will be a 90-minute session. My name is Jerry Lin. I'm a principal engineer here at Cisco, focusing on security. This is a breakout security 2176 sessions called Keeping Up with Zero Trust, kind of like what's the latest trends, what's happening with Zero Trust, and hopefully I can share some of my war stories recently, and hopefully it's interesting for you guys. Okay. I work on our security architecture team, so I don't focus on one product, right? It's about architectures, as I stated in my morning session. I work on architecture, solution sets, how to address security end to end here. And if you can join this WebEx space, I will publish the PDF after we get done here. They're supposed to do this ahead of time, but obviously the AI engine failed. They're supposed to simplify this for all of us, but it's not working. So put it in the feedback, not about my session, but about the Cisco Live, like, hey, the content wasn't available here. Okay, so it's breakout 2176. Okay, so today we're going to talk about kind of where are we in Zero Trust, at least my perspective. I've been sort of going around the world a couple of years now at Cisco, talking to executives, talking to customers such as you. I was at the Identiverse conference last week as well, talking to others about, hey, what are you seeing in identity and Zero Trust and all of that. So it's very, very interesting things here. So I'll talk about Zero Trust, kind of how I can summarize it into different use cases here. Okay, trying to make it interesting and interactive for you guys. So where are we in terms of Zero Trust? I think, at least according to the Cisco marketing study, that the market has matured in a way, meaning that according to this, 86% of all organizations or customers have said, yeah, we've all done Zero Trust. I don't know what that means, right? It means, yeah, we turned on authentication, we turned on certificates, we started to lock things down for the user, and that's all for the right reasons, okay? And then if you sort of kind of moving it back down to the bottom, like, well, only 2% of customers have realized that, wow, there's so much more we haven't done. So much more we haven't done to make sure our network is secure, protecting users and protecting the data. Okay, so it's sort of a wide range of scope, but at least, I mean, every customer, at least according to this, like, yeah, we turn on Zero Trust, we turn on multi-factor authentication and all that stuff, and everybody should be doing that, okay? Hopefully I'm right, and you tell me if I'm wrong here. Well, if that is true, there's still all kinds of, if you read the hacker news, all kinds of hacking going on, cracks, breaches into the network, AT&T breach, Typhoon, botnet, stealing credentials, stealing session cookies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all happening, and it's not going down. It's only going up. The more reports, the more breaches. If you've seen the Talos 2024 year-end review, it's published on our Talos Intelligence webpage of, hey, identity breaches, 60% 2024 of all engagement, and it's only getting worse. I'm like, why is it getting worse? We're all doing MFA, right? We're all doing advanced authentication, complex passwords, single sign-on, all of that. Why are things still happening? Very, very crazy. So we got to do better here. We're still following NIST 800-207, and it's not just Cisco. I've talked to all different vendors. Everybody's following 800-207, meaning there is a policy decision engine at the top layer, control plane, and that dictates what policies to push down to the bottom, which is the enforcement layer. That's the policy enforcement points. Easy, very, very easy. Create a policy, deploy across your network. That's a standard. It's recommended by the industry, by CISA, NIST. But the issue that I see is, like, how do you do it across all of your environments? Everybody's network is different. And the how is what's not prescribed, right? 'Cause nobody's going to tell you how to do it. They just say that you have to do it. So hopefully our job here, at least my job here at Cisco, is like, hey, these are the things, integration to make it better for you to do what NIST is recommending that you do. Okay, to see more prescription here. So we have a security reference architecture This is not a security reference architecture session, but it's available on Cisco.com. And really, Zero Trust is about, it's kind of dumb, right? It's about the whole thing. It's about users accessing data across your network through cloud, through on-prem, multi-cloud, what have you. It's the whole process. That's what Zero Trust is. It's very, very general, and we can get deeper into that at another time if you want to do a follow-up here. So how do I summarize Zero Trust? So I got it down to 4 use cases. Used to be 3, but now it's 4. One is about controlling admin access, all about identity. Second one, how do we secure a remote worker? You're all traveling this week, so you are a hybrid remote worker accessing data. A third one is on-prem, what happens when you go back to your office. And the fourth one is protecting the back-end applications. Okay? So far, so good? Interesting or not interesting? Okay, so let's talk about the first use case, Zero Trust admin access. This is one that is on top of my list, and I'll tell you why. Who has heard of Salt Typhoon? Okay, a few. The latest version is now, Vault Typhoon. That's been out, okay? So I was fortunate and unfortunate to be involved with the customer involved in Salt Typhoon, and we're trying to help them clean up Salt Typhoon. And so for everybody, I just level set, right? If you don't know what Salt Typhoon is, it's right off of Wikipedia. It's a Chinese advanced persistent threat that came out in 2020. And the idea is to steal sensitive information from you. That's the goal. Okay? And it sort of evolved. They redirected in the last year or two. Not me. They are going after the large targets. So if you're an ISP, if you're working for ISP, you are a huge target, if not already been through this exercise. Anybody work for the large ISPs? I'm just curious in here. Nobody? Okay. All right, then I can say whatever I want, right? All right, okay. But it's all true. I don't making this up here. So basically, Salt Typhoon is they find large ISPs, you can imagine, breach the network, okay? And they live off the LAN. Living off the LAN meaning Windows PowerShell, scripts, whatever is on their PC, and collect Intel property without doing anything. They're just collecting information, stealing information from you, and doing more later. So that's a problem. Salt Typhoon, as I met with a customer, and this was last November, last December timeframe, so we're going on 6 months now, meeting with a customer, and this is what was described to us, and this has already been starting to come out in the papers, that attackers infiltrated the network, their network. They're able to make lateral movements and access device credentials. Right? Not only are they in your network, they're like, hey, I got the keys to the kingdom. I got the keys to your house. I'm going to walk around and take anything I want. Potential service accounts, for them to steal anything off the network, right, they need credentials, like secrets, passwords, and service accounts especially. Who does not have any service accounts in their network? That's a joke, right? Everybody does because you have scanners, you have CI/CD pipelines, you do things to automate process. Service accounts is a huge thing. And bottom line was the customer says, hey, Jerry, or Cisco, I felt personal. I'm like, oh man, he's targeting me. It's like, our network infrastructure was compromised, okay? And Cisco, you need to fix this. Oh my God, like, what happened? And I wish, lesson learned, they would have engaged us ahead of time, right? Like, there's a brief, but the customer engaged another organization in terms of incident response and all that. So it's complete after the fact that they went through their whole process. They came back to Cisco and go, Cisco, you need to fix this. This is what happened. So I got assigned to this, and I'm working on this. Like, all right, great. And if you don't know Salt Typhoon, we publish on our Talos blog details about Salt Typhoon, what I just kind of described to you, but in a lot more detail. So I highly encourage you to go read this, okay? And basically, there are 3 CVEs by Cisco for Salt Typhoon. CVEs, and you can imagine, whoops, sorry. Typical CVEs are what? Vulnerabilities in our iOS software, right? iOS, NXOS CLI command injection, iOS XE vulnerability, and there's three things. Patch, please patch, and please patch. That's all I'll say. And Talos says, please patch, okay? If you patch it, you're good. You're much better off, but if the guy is in your network or the attacker's in your network, I don't know how I can help you here. Okay, so please patch. Now, let's rewind the wheel a little bit. Just look at basics of Zero Trust and this. So you're all network specialists and security guys. So let's look at authentication. AAA versus modern authentication. Things like WebAuthn, FIDO2 Alliance for biometric authentication. Let's look at the details of how this is related to this here. And then my buddy Aaron Wolin, he has a whole session about modern authentication. If you can go to a session, he gets a lot deeper into every single protocol. Okay, so that's kind of our recommendation here. So let's, high overview is, let's talk about what we typically do on the network. We all use Radius. We use a central authentication server. In this case, for Cisco is ICE. ICE uses Radius or TACACS to control the network protocols, ports on, off, et cetera, and then ICE or Radius engine talks to Active Directory. That's common, right? We all do this, right? Okay. That's different than what we all do from our mobile phones or laptop now. Even when I log into the Cisco network today, I do biometrics authentication or Windows Hello for Business, or I do our Duo multi-factor authentication. I do biometrics, my fingerprint. I'm logged in. That's FIDO2, right? That's WebAuthn authentication. That's not Radius. That's different than the network. So it's users and the network. Two separate worlds, right? But there's convergence that has to happen in order for these things to get better over time. Let's keep going here. So the user side with FIDO authentication, biometric authentication, and we're typically using SAML. Anybody using SAML already today? Everybody should be, right? Because Microsoft says, Entra IDs in the cloud, Active Directory move in the cloud, you do all SAML everything, and boom, off you go. Okay, so you know how SAML works. User authenticates, checks with the IDP, and the SP in the middle is typically the application, like the firewall or whatever or web service you're accessing. And basically, you authenticate against an IDP. It grants you an assertion token, and then bam, off you go. It's very simple. User authentication, leveraging WebAuthn, et cetera. Okay, so why am I talking about this? Okay, back to the story with the customer demand of us. I'm stressing out here. Like, okay, Cisco, you need to fix this problem for Salt Typhoon because it's your problem. Okay, all right, let's peel back the layers of the onion and look at one I know. Okay, if it's a network security problem, which we are responsible for, all right, remember what I said? The Salt Typhoon, the attacker gets into the network, they got the keys, they got the secrets, they got the keys to the kingdom, they're able to roam around and steal information. Okay, well, in order for me to solve that, I can turn on encryption. That means all communication from my central authentication server, ICE or Radius server, talking to your switches, routers, all firewall, whatever, everything should be encrypted, right? It's Radius. Radius has some encryption, but we can put it in RADSEC. Again, you can run Radius security, RADSEC, to really encrypt that so the bad guy can't see it. If some guy's in your network sniffing packets on your network, if it's encrypted, they can't see it, okay? So RADSEC is an option for, at least from the network perspective. I want to encrypt everything. But we don't support RADSEC for all Cisco devices, unfortunately. Okay, so that's a nice option, but we don't support it. And then, how about Radius over IPsec? Anybody doing Radius over IPsec today? ICE supports it, Identity Service Engine, so you can run all your Radius communication and put it in an IPsec tunnel. For the customer, they have over 20,000 devices. So now my question is, okay, I can run Radius over IPsec, but can I do that for 20,000 devices to an ICE instance? We never tested that before, not at that scale. So, okay, that's not top of my list here. All right, let's put TACACS TACACS now is command authorization, right, for the admin logging the network, issuing commands. Let's put everything over TLS 1.3. Right. TLS 1.2 is already here today. 1.3 is the new thing, better encryption. So let's put TLS 1.3, TACACS over TLS 1.3. We don't quite support TLS 1.3 yet, at least for TACACS. Oh, we can't do that. And then last, for TACACS, okay, who is using TACACS today? Okay, so you tell me here, how does TACACS work? You have an ICE or Radius server or ICE, talks to your network device. When you set up that connection, you put in a secret, right? Okay, and then sessions encrypted. Okay, so if the bad guy says, I can see everything on your network already, I already got your secret, he's already in. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So does that mean we have to change TACACS passwords every day? It's not scalable. It's like changing your user password every day. That's not a solution, not a long-term solution. So we are actually modifying TACACS. It's an industry protocol to rotate keys. But again, is that a long-term solution? You tell me. I don't think it is. Okay. So these are all the things we can do to protect the network and making sure that your credentials across the network are not stolen by the hacker getting into your network. So that's something we can do. The other side is, okay, what if it's more than that? So this is the stuff we're working on left. What if it's more than that? The bad guys, or at least the customer says, credentials were stolen and they're roaming around on my network. Okay, so if credentials are stolen, you gotta change passwords. The customer goes, yeah, I want to get rid of passwords. I want to get rid of TACACS secret keys. I want to get rid of Radius. They want to get rid of all that because they consider that static password. It's not secure. So we got to move to things like FIDO2 authentication. And the TACACS protocol, 8907, has been around for 20 years. It doesn't support FIDO2. We have to change the industry standard. And changing industry standard doesn't take days, takes months, years to make sure the entire industry will support that. So that's work in progress. We have to change the TACACS standard, okay, to incorporate the newer authentication methods like SAML that we're all used to. Then lockdown infrastructure, meaning that if you're logging to the network as an admin, you have to come in from an authorized device. Okay, and if you want to do that, okay, that's something that you guys have to do. The customer has to do. We, Cisco, I can't tell you how to lock things down. That's something you got to do. So there's a handful of things that needs to be done to really prevent an event like Salt Typhoon. Okay, it's a handful of things, not just one thing, but at least the customer goes, hey, Cisco, it's your problem. It's the network problem. So as I go through all this, I'm like, I don't think we have some responsibility, but you got to work with me here. There's more at play here. There's more things. iOS XE devices, switches. There's a thing called guest shell. Anybody know guest shell? Or one or two, or a few, guest shell? A few, okay. It's, in my opinion, from a security, is built for convenience. Guest shell is a virtualized Linux-based environment designed to run Linux applications like Python scripts. I'm like, wow. Okay, so it's basically a little partition. You log into the switch when you first get the Cisco switch as an example. You run guest shell. You can run some software to automate configurations and run a bunch of things. Well, geez, that to me sounds like it's a hacker's paradise, right? If I can get into your switch, I'm going to put a little host agent there and listen or do whatever. I'm going to hide there. So the customer goes, no, I don't want that. You guys got to remove that. Okay, and guest shell doesn't support full-on AAA. It's very light. It's like local, put in a username and an account, that's it. It doesn't do accounting, none of that. So that's bad security, so they want us to remove it. Okay, but I'm telling the customer, you use this for setting up, bootstrapping, staging your device on your network. You really want to get rid of this thing? So it's just for lack of security, all right, so we got to remove that. So it's probably going to get removed at some point in time, but it's still there. So but still, By default, it's not on. You have to turn it on, right? We're telling a customer, well, just don't turn it on. Don't use it. But anyway, I can't force too much here. Authentication. Users log into the network. I'm like, so are you turning on multi-factor authentication? And they say yes. Okay, are you using our Cisco offers a solution, right? We have Duo security integrated with our Radius integration, so you can do multi-factor authentication for TACACS. That exists today, right? They're not using Cisco Duo, they're using Microsoft NPS. Who has heard of Microsoft NPS server? Is that new or is that old? It's old. They're doing this, oh yeah, we're doing multi-factor authentication for Radius, right? NPS works on the Radius protocol. And I said, okay, so is your Radius exchange encrypted? No. Are you using RADSec? Are you using TLS? Everything I've described on the network, but they're using it with Microsoft. They said they're not doing it, and they're like, okay, well, there's a possible breach problem right there with Radius using NPS. You got to update. So we're all working with them to help them with the options. So that's another thing, like we can help you with this, but you got to work with me here, right, to do better. And then from the network administration side still, like this is on the left-hand side is our secure firewall. So you can notice if you use FMC, Firewall Management Center, username, password, you want to get rid of it. It's still there for you to tie it back to Active Directory if you're still using username, password, but we now added single sign-on, SAML. SAML allows you to do multi-factor authentication, biometrics, WebAuthn, all that stuff. We added that with ICE as well. So we are moving forward to helping our customers secure the network, right? Do SAML, move away from traditional authentication. That could be breached. Okay, so we're making progress. But still, that's just a network piece. Like, what if it's truly an identity problem? Like, how did this all start? If it's an identity problem, meaning that, and this is a session hijacking. Everybody familiar with session hijacking? Cookie sessions? I hope so, okay. This is not new, it's been around for a while. Basically, it's a man in the middle. It's a man in the middle that steals your session, watches you authenticate, and they steal your session cookie, and then log in as you, right? The meme now, the joke is like the hackers don't hack in, they just log in the network as you, okay? And so let me show you. This is courtesy of my buddy in Germany, Stefan. I think is here presenting. Yeah, he's got a session on this as well. So courtesy of my friend Stefan, he was using a tool called Evil Jinx. This is a man-in-the-middle phishing attack. It's simple. Evil Jinx works on all these applications, Facebook, Office 365, LinkedIn, Instagram, et cetera, right? So Evil Jinx tool, he logs in, and it basically says, okay, the user logs into their email, and they get a phishing email. It's like, phishing still exists today? Oh my God, we should all be phishing resistant already, but still it happened. So you get a phishing email, you click on that phishing email, that phishing email takes you to a bad guy man-in-the-middle website for Office 365. It looks just like Office 365. And the unsuspicious user says, okay, I'm going to log in, and I'm getting prompted for multi-factor authentication. They go through multi-factor authentication, and then, boom, they logged into the web page. Hey, I'm in. All right, cool. The unsuspecting user never knew what happened. The bad guy on the right-hand says, okay, yes, they came through me, man in the middle. I just capture their session ID, session cookie, so I'm going to cut and paste there. Right, I'm going to grab that whole blob of code. That's the session ID. And then now the bad guy has to do is, I'm going to go to the Microsoft webpage. I'm not going to log in. I'm going to go to the extensions and paste the session key. I'm just going to paste the session key into this editor here, this cookie thing. Paste that in there. And simply not logging in, simply hit refresh. You're in. You're in as my friend Stefan into his Microsoft account. There's the whole time, and you can imagine as a bad guy, now I breach your account, I've logged in your account, I'm going to add my own mobile device as an MFA, so hey, I stay under the radar, now I can do whatever I want, right? You never knew what happened. But notice earlier, right, I show MFA. The user went through multi-factor authentication as a side channel. They went through all of that thinking it's secure, but the session ID has been stolen. So this is how things happen, right? So that, in my opinion, is an identity problem. It has nothing to do with network security. Someone breached your network, you're in, right? So what are you doing? I'm asking my customer, and I guess I ask you guys, what are you doing to look at identity across your entire environment? I'm willing to bet you have Workday or HR database, you have Active Directory, you have Entra, you have Okta, you have Amazon, IAM, you have a bunch of stuff like we all do at Cisco. There's different identity stores across Cisco. What are you doing to synchronize all of that so you know about the user behavior across all of them? Okay, and so that means like we have a solution. So like we can help you look at how your users are all authenticating getting on the network. Are you doing multi-factor authentication? Are you picking up the phone and call help desk to reset your password? Are you doing phone push, whatever? Lots of options. It gives you a real perspective of what's happening across your network. Are you doing that? Are you looking at unsanctioned accounts? This is simple. Like, hey, I work in the U.S. Why did I log in from, Africa or Iceland or wherever, Australia? Right? It's unrealistic travel. I'm here, so why did I log in from Australia? It doesn't make sense. So these are all signs that should be detected from an identity issue here. And then, of course, applications, specifically service accounts. Right? We're talking with my customer and looking at some of their service accounts. They have scanners, Qualys scanners, that they have embedded credentials into their software CI/CD pipeline, and they initiate scans to 20,000 devices of checking for configs and stuff like that. Those are service accounts. And like, why do I see this service account, authenticating against this one device 800 times in one day? That seems like a lot, right? That's an identity problem, in my opinion. It's not a network security problem. That's an identity problem. So how are you tracking all of that stuff, right? All that is new to identity, in my opinion. Okay? So Cisco, you can imagine, we have a product called CII, Cisco Identity Intelligence, and you may have seen some presentations or gone to other sessions. CII does just that, looks at all of your identities across your identity stores, look at user behavior, applications, and what is happening here, and pointing out, we have a thing called user trust, looking at abnormal behavior, what's normal, what's not normal, how do we assign the right privilege access to you based on your access behavior. So we have that stuff. Again, more details, you can, we'll talk more about it or go to the session here. So far so good, admin access, I hope, I'm not trying to scare you. This is just the world I live in now. Like, I'm still working with a customer on how do we secure things. So there's more to come here. All right, so let's talk about other area, remote access. Talking to the customer, I said, okay, so if it's an identity problem, and they have lots of people working remotely, right? It's a global company. They log in, so like, how are you controlling access into your network? Are you doing segmentation? Are you doing things like ZTNA, locking things down? SSH, RDP are tools that the admins often use as well. So are you doing things like ZTNA, where you just make it easy? You have a client on the left-hand side here. This is a slide from our secure access team here. You have a client on the left-hand side here controlling your access into your data center resources on the right-hand side here. And the whole middle piece is, you got the firewall, DNS security, the whole layer 7 stack, including AI access. That's all part of secure access. Okay, but my focus here is like, how are they accessing your infrastructure? Are they doing ZTNA? Right, ZTNA by definition means per application VPN. Per application VPN. It's not about connecting by a full VPN, you get the keys to the kingdom. No, it's per application VPN. When you logged in that one time, you get SSH access into data center switch number 1. That's all you get. Are you doing that? Well, they're not doing that. I'm like, okay, well, you should probably look at that if you want to lock things down. They're going, wait a minute, 20,000 plus devices, we have hundreds of admin, I can't do ZTNA because it's too many granular policy I have to configure. The technology exists for them to lock it down, but they're like, we're not going to do ZTNA. It's just too hard. It's going to be too much work. Okay, all right. We don't want to do that. Well, they can always default back to VPN. If you don't want to do ZTNA, you can leverage ZTNA for critical applications, maybe for the corporate users. And then for the admin people, they can just default back to VPN if they want to. Full VPN, and you just put some ACLs in place. Like, hey, you come in a VPN, you can only get access to a couple of jump boxes and go from there, right? These are all just process and configurations that they can, options that they can use to try to lock things down. Now, at the same time, if you have the client, I mean, our client now supports certificate authentication, which is what my customer now has decided to do. Like, I want to lock all access down to devices leveraging certificate authentication. I'm like, oh, great. We now support certificate authentication, so even if you have the client, you can deploy a certificate from your PKI, and boom, you're coming from a supported, sanctioned, dedicated device. That's a good thing to have. So we're going down that path here. Now, from a ZTNA perspective, like publishing, my customer is asking, well, how do you control publishing of services for ZTNA? How do you control access? Well, it's quite simple. In Secure Access, when you configure a resource, like here is just a demo server I have, these are options. You pick, for this specific resource, do I want to allow client-based connection, browser-based connection, or VPN? VPN is the full thick client. Okay, cool, but we already agree that full thick client is too big, it's too wide, all right, let's remove that, you can. If you want to simply do browser-based, okay, check a box, that's it. Or if you want to do the ZTNA client authentication, leverage that. These are all options for my customer to use, okay, or you guys can use it as well. That's how granular, how easy it is to configure. And then once you log in, like this is the ZTNA module, and you get all the statistics of the connections and all the advanced authentication that you're used to doing username, password, multi-factor authentication, multi-certificates, et cetera. It's all there. It's all there. That's part of the Cisco Secure Client. Okay, I mean, I won't bore you with the details. Cisco Secure Client has been around for a while. You guys probably use it, and it's there. Okay, so that's an option for you to use here. Now, from an access control, from secure access perspective, I talked about SAML authentication of resources, right? If you simply say, hey, I want to simply use the browser-based, and then so whoever's trying to access that resource through a browser has to authenticate. Okay, well, that's easy. You can choose the IDP of your choice. We have a bunch of them, and Duo, if you haven't heard, like Duo announced officially, hey, we're now adding a Duo directory into Duo offering. So Duo is serving like an IDP. So if you're unhappy with Microsoft, unhappy with Okta, there's a bunch of things we can do with Duo. And I'm like, hey, cool, that's pretty cool. Do we want to take on the battle against Entra ID head-to-head? I'm like, I don't want to do that. Entra is so embedded in your environment, you're established, right? So at least from a Duo perspective, I think we are a super, super proxy, IDP proxy. You point to us, we add security, we route you to whatever IDPs you want, and go, right? It's a migration path here. So hey, come talk to us, come talk to the Duo team if you want more information, but they recently announced the IDP functionality, and it's pretty cool. So now I don't have to, in my test lab, I don't have to point to Entra, I have to point to Okta, I just create my own IDP and off I go. So it's pretty cool. Okay. And then my buddy Clayton, he has a whole session on Duo directory. So if you get a chance, go his session 2082 here. Okay, back to the whole Salt Typhoon here. I'm sort of jumping all over the place. Who's locking down users and to devices today, if any? User devices, okay. Just a few? Years ago, when ICE 1.0, ICE 1.1 came out, and I talked to a ton of enterprise customers. I talked to CISOs. They were like, hey, Jerry, in order for me to buy your product, you have to do user authentication and device authentication combined together at the same time to get access to the network. Right? That's a feature we call EAP chaining. Yep, thank you very much. Or eat fast, leveraging eat fast, and eventually it's called TEAP. Right? That's the new industry protocol, TEAP. Microsoft now supports it. It's relying on the OS to do user and device authentication at the same time, TEAP. So this was 10, 15 years ago. So why are we not doing that today? Right? So I'm asking my customer, I'm like, okay, so are you tying users down to the device? They weren't. They said because of COVID, because of BYOD, working from home, the policies sort of have relaxed. And even at Cisco, we had the same thing. For a while, I can use my wife's iPad, fire it up, complete new foreign device, BYOD. I upon the Cisco website, log in as me, authenticate with multi-factor authentication on my phone, I'm in. For a while, I can do that at Cisco. And because of incident like this, we have stopped all of that. Like, if you're not on a corporate sanctioned supported device, you can't access any Cisco resource anymore. So I'm telling our customers, like, you need to lock things down, right? We did it 15 years ago. Why are you not doing it now? Because of breaches happening, right? Passwords getting stolen. As soon as someone steals your credentials, they're trying to get into the network as you. If you're not tying that device down, you're not doing yourself any favors. Users, devices, so at least with Duo, we can do that today. We have a thing called Trusted Device. Okay, register your device to the network. You can also download the agent. And now when you log in, it's looking at user and device at the same time, right, to be trusted here. So highly, highly recommended, like users and device, lock it down, okay? So what do you think? I mean, if we tie the users and device down, would that have prevented Salt Typhoon or at least possibly stopped it? I think there was a high probability that it could have. And in doing more investigation with my customer, they said, yeah, all of our remote admins, they can only access to our infrastructure through a specific subnet, or they have to log in, get on like a jump box, right? It's an out-of-band network. Through some investigation, it wasn't 100% true. Like, oh my God, it wasn't 100% true. There were few areas they allow people log in and boom, you can get access to the infrastructure. I'm like, that's an open window you left open. So anyway, okay. Now, ZTNA has changed. Zero Trust Network Access, right? Per application VPN. Now the definition, as you'll probably hear at Cisco Live, universal ZTNA has changed, or has expanded. We have customers, finance customer says, hey, look, I trust the cloud somewhat. I trust my on-prem stack of security 100%, but the cloud is 99% because the cloud never fails. The cloud always works, right? I'm like, okay. So I have a finance customer says, look, I need to pin certain applications to come through my on-prem stack on the bottom, and while the remaining applications can go across cloud, I don't care. Not as mission critical. Okay, all right, so Universal ZTNA now allows you to do that. You can pin applications where you want to go. And so I'm talking to my customers, I'm like, okay, for your admin, for your critical control, why don't you pin SSH? Why don't you pin RDP? Pin whatever, however you manage your infrastructure through your on-prem stack. Forget the cloud if you think there's some potential uncertainty with cloud access. It's an option. So we put that all on the table for them. Like, pin it. Okay? It's new. It's something I haven't quite seen by other vendors across the industry. So it's something new, and take a look at it. Universal ZTNA. Okay? And then this is just a diagram of how I'll skip the details, the flow diagram, unless you guys want to know more. So let me show you a quick demo of Universal ZTNA here, of how it works. So this is our, all managed by Security Cloud Control. That's our security console here. And then you can see here, it's Universal ZTNA, and we have devices on the left-hand side. There's a firewall now, and there's secure access, right? In the past, it was two separate UIs, firewall management and secure access. But with Security Cloud Control, we're pulling it all together as one. So You see them on the left-hand side here, and then so within Security Cloud Control, I see Firewall, FTD, as a supported device. Great. And then I go to FTD, and then these are all the devices, and I type in what I'm looking for. So that is the FMC instance. FMC manages the FTDs, registers it. So that shows up in Secure Access as an on-prem device, but I'm looking at it from an overall cloud perspective here. And then I'm looking at the applications. I have a file share application and a wiki internal application that I want to pin those applications to my firewall instead of accessing through the cloud, right? Even though I'm remote as a user, I still want to force that traffic to come back. So I simply go in the configuration and pick these applications, wiki, and the file, and associate with the firewall, right? All from a single UI policy configuration perspective here. And then once I configure that, so that becomes a private resource, and it does a push to FMC because Security Cloud Control delegates down to the FMC, and the FMC tells the firewall, here's a new config, push. That's it, it does a deploy. And so from the user experience, Universal ZTNA, I simply launch my secure client, and the ZTA access, that's the ZTNA module. So here I'm trying to do a file share, so that traffic is being controlled and redirected in the background by that module across on-prem. I mean, the user never knows, right? The user never knows how they're accessing it besides, hey, I'm connected to it through the secure channel. But you, the admin, you said, yeah, I redirected it back through on-prem here. And you can see this is the internal wiki as well, both application access, and this is just a mock web page here. So the users connect to it, they simply don't know how they're doing it. It just works for them. But you as an admin, now you can look at Security Cloud Control, you can see, oh yeah, device type, these applications are all done by FTD. It all gets rerouted. If not, it goes through the cloud, right? You control how the applications are redirected, which I think is pretty cool, that to tell my customers, if you really want to lock things down, ZTNA is a good option for you, okay? Make sense? Yeah, okay. Come on, let's keep moving here. From an identity CI perspective, CI, I told you, we're looking at user identity across all your IDPs, right? Is Jerry doing the right thing, logging to the network, and that there's some sort of trust level built within for my profile? So in CII, we build this thing called user trust levels. And this is about being trusted, untrusted, favorable, et cetera. Okay, and we're building these features, and I'll show you here in a second here, did a review. Anybody using CI today or Cisco Identity Intelligence as part of Duo? No? Oh, okay, cool. There's a learning session here. Basically, we create the profile for you of trusted, untrusted, neutral, and if you're trusted, I'm going to allow you to do single sign-on, and then you're on. That's it, minimal interaction. But if I'm neutral, I'm going to force more authentication because I'm traveling. Something looks weird about me, I'm going to force a different authentication policy. That's the user behavior. And this, we're pushing these access privileges policies down to multiple devices. We're pushing that down to the firewall. So you can imagine a firewall at the edge. As you come through the firewall, if you're untrusted, the firewall is probably going to go block or something, to give you a different access level dynamically. And this is also being built into secure access as well. So you can assign different privileges based on user access control. So I think it's pretty cool stuff, right? So this could be helping my customer, like, hey, someone logs in as an admin that's highly irregular behavior, they need to authenticate more. That's the bottom line here. Okay, and then other things with the cloud, like VPN, even at Cisco today, all full VPN has been migrated to the cloud. No more physical appliances, you have to upgrade software. It's all part of our secure access. So all I'm saying here is instead of a VPN stack like we have on the bottom here, FTD, okay, it's VPN to service from secure access. It's just as a service. That's all it is. So that's an option for you guys to do. And then What's nice about this, you go into the cloud, you can authenticate by SAML, if you're pointing to Entra ID or Duo, doesn't really matter. Or you can also still point back to Radius for full VPN, right? We're full VPN, you can do Radius authentication. ICE can talk to our secure access cloud, so what you have still exists. It's full integration. However you want to deploy it, it all just works to keep things simple here. All right, and this is just VPN configurations. I've shown kind of a boring screen here. I won't bore you with the details on how to configure it. But from a logging perspective, it all looks the same. You look at user access logs, the time of day, timestamp, all that is there. Nothing is lost. Okay, so there's just some screenshots here. Okay, all right, let's continue on, go to on-prem. On-prem is something we've all been doing for 20 years now, or 25 years. And this is pretty simple, right? So for Cisco, we use ICE. ICE is our central authentication engine for everything on the network. And that means your wireless, VPN, even devices that can respond to authentication. They simply show up on the network, ICE sees it, ICE authorizes it and gives it a policy and logs everything. That's the boring piece. The more exciting piece is sharing the context of those users and devices getting on the network, right? That's the sharing piece of sharing it with the rest of the network. And that means ICE is sharing policy, context with the Cisco security appliance like firewalls. We share it with Catalyst Center, ACI or APIC if you're doing that. Even IoT devices, right? If you have Order, you have Medigate, you have Armis, any of this third-party software to help you profile devices depending on your industry, ICE supports all of them. PXGrid is open to all of them for you to exchange context. Then even cloud providers, right? Like, wow, you probably never thought, like, what is ICE doing with cloud providers like AWS? Well, we take resources that we understand from cloud, we map those attributes back into network language that we understand. Okay, SGTs as an example for mapping. We map that back, and then all that's contained within ICE, and ICE can share that with competitors. If you have a third-party non-Cisco firewall, as long as they participate in PXGrid, they can leverage the context from ICE. It's all available to you here. Okay, and then PXGrid is the RFC. Just tell your firewall, if you're not using Cisco, tell your firewall of vendor, like, hey, let's do some PXGrid. Let's make the whole network work better together from a zero trust access control perspective. So it's wide open here. And this is what it looks like in ICE. Hey, when I authenticate a user using ETLS or Active Directory domain matching, whatever it is, it's an employee. And then I assign an SGT value, Security Group Tag membership of, hey, you're an employee, you get a tag. It's that simple in the ICE deployment. Okay. Anybody using ICE in here? A handful? Are you guys doing SGTs? Maybe? No? So it doesn't cost you anything. Doesn't cost you anything. Whatever license that you have today, when you create your policy on the previous page there, just assign an SGT column, like employee or postured or VPN users or contractors. Assign SGT value to your ICE policy so you can begin your segmentation strategy. And you can run a report by the end of the 30 days of, hey, did all my authenticated users get assigned the right SGT value for me to plan for segmentation? It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't hurt anything either. You just turn it on, and then you can pick what devices want to start enforcing SGTs. Right? So it's a journey. You can do this. And what that means is, again, SGTs allow us to dynamically assign group users. So I'm telling my customer, the service provider customer, that I'm like, are you doing SGTs? Can you do SGTs in terms of segmentation? All admin users or all network administrators, you come into the network, you get assigned a network administrator tag, and you get the SGT value, and you do whatever you need to do. Segment it from everything else, dynamically. Like, well, okay, that's an option. And then this is just configuration of ICE talking to Catalyst Center. If anybody using Catalyst Center, again, you sort of point the two devices together, and off you go. It's pretty simple here. And then from a firewall perspective, well, this is kind of a cool one. Starting with Firepower 7.6. Anybody using 7.6 or higher? Maybe? All right, one or two? Okay. So prior to 7.6, for firewall to talk to ICE, pxscript joining, right, for configuration perspective, there's a bunch of stuff you have to do. You have to go into ICE to generate a CSR, certificate signing request, download a certificate, and then import it into Firepower, and then start pointing things together, right? And if you're not familiar with PKIs, like, oh man, it's very human error prone. So starting with 7.6, now you go into here, go into integrations menu, you're trying to point to ICE, put in your ICE IP address, your credentials for you to log in, and there's a button, oh, check these boxes, there's a button for you to hit enroll. That's it. Hit the enroll button, it automatically talks to ICE, generates a certificate, pulls it down, and go, whoop, whoop, done. And one button, one click, and now look into your firewall, you can see that, oh, dynamic attributes, all my SGTs show up in my firewall. We made that in 7.6, and I'm like, yay! And then 7.7 has been carried forward to make it easier because we're trying to expand segmentation across the firewall and others easier and easier, trying to make it easier. Okay. So if you get a chance, hopefully try it out. And then if you trying to figure out, well, is it working with ICE? Again, these are more troubleshooting because I went through all this with customers, and these are just a bunch of screenshots like, hey, you can look at, see if your device is connected to ICE successfully. If it's not successful, there's logs you can look at on what's broken. It's just troubleshooting. It's all there because we heard from customers, man, pxscript was too hard at the time before, but now we're making it easier to troubleshoot. It should have been there. Should have been there a year, but it took time here. All right, let me show you a quick SGT demo here. This is an SGT demo segmentation of here, user Patrick Mahomes logging into the network, trying to do something bad here. So what we're going to do is leverage the network, leverage the firewall, FMC, firewall to IPS, and talking with ICE and the network together as one here. But that was the whole idea, is that basically Patrick logs into the network, firewall detects it, bad behavior, sends a signal back to ICE. ICE issues a change of authorization, tells the firewall to quarantine ICE changes the tag. Firewall now has a separate rule that says, oh, okay, if you're quarantined, you get blocked. It's that simple, right? It's called rapid threat containment here. And then SGTs, we're expanding that into secure access as well. Right? Secure access is a pure cloud edge play. So if we can't fulfill our segmentation obligation if we don't extend SGT in the cloud. So now we added that into secure access as well. So you can say my SGT segmentation extended in the cloud, devices are IoT, they get a specific policy, all working on the same SGT policy here. Same thing with SD-WAN. Again, I'm just going to go through SD-WAN policy. It's all just SGT's base source destination match. So it's all been integrated. Okay. Same thing with IoT. I have plenty of customers says in IoT in their manufacturing environment. They said we have a bunch of Cisco switches, and we have Cisco firewall, or we have like Palo firewall as an example. We want to minimize the amount of firewalls we have to buy. Can I leverage the network to do segmentation for me? Absolutely. We can, ICE talks to CyberVision, which is our IoT solution here. CyberVision sends attributes about all its devices in ICE. ICE talks to the switches, and switches simply issues different SGTs across the different platforms. Very, very simple. It's taking what we do in IT and moving it into OT here, okay? So could SGTs have helped with Salt Typhoon as an example? I think it would have helped with segmentation. Admin users get access to admin resources dynamically. Normal users get segmented, employees and contractors. This absolutely could have helped as one layer of defense. I can't say this will solve all the problems, but from a network perspective, this could have helped. And this is something we're putting on a table for the customer. Like, can we do this to help you do segmentation here? So where we are today, as I mentioned earlier, right? my customer has decided we really have to lock things down. Okay, in addition to the network segmentation, we're doing certificates. We're doing certificates. So who's doing certificate authentication across their environment? A few? Just a few? Okay. So my customers bit the bullet and go, we got to do it. Basically, they're issuing corporate certificate to all corporate managed devices. If you want to access infrastructure for you to do your job, you have to have a corporate certificate. And fortunately for us, like this is nothing new. This has been around for a while. Actually, there's an article that was published even in 2016 for our DoD customers on how to do certificate authentication. So it's a user logging in to a Cisco device. We're doing X509 authentication here. And then we have ICE, or Radius server here. We have an OCS server, OCSPs for revocation of certificates. But ICE is really doing the authorization. Hey, if you come in as a certificate, you've been authenticated. Now we want to authorize what you can do, what commands you can issue. So that's available today. We're going down that path with the customer. But for one device is easy. But as I mentioned, 20,000 devices. How many versions of iOS across 20,000 devices do you think? There's 25. It was like more like 50-something versions. It's a mess. 20,000 devices, including devices that are like being end of sale, right? We don't make it anymore. It's been around for 7 years, and we have to refresh. So there's all these different iOS versions. We're working on this with them, like, okay, can we do this across your environment, assuming all the devices support X509 authentication. So it's not a technology limitation now. It's just time that we don't have and trying to lock things down here. So but then again, my question is, how is your staff equipped at supporting PKIs? Do they know how it all works? Can you support it and troubleshoot and reissue certificates and all that stuff? So it's a big undertaking here. All right, the last use case here, let's see how much time we have here. Oh, we still got 32 minutes, wow. Okay, the last use case I want to talk about is on the application side. So far, we've been looking at users authenticating on a network. What about the applications in the back end? Okay, and you all know that when you make a credit card transaction, go to the grocery store, your credit is probably being checked by multiple organizations, making sure you're good score and all that, and there's a lot of back end transactions happening here, right? All that going in the back here. So I'm meeting with a lot of customers and they go, hey, look, we have challenges with the application segmentation. Application segmentation, we can't see all the applications, especially across multi-clouds. Hard to do east-west segmentation on the black box because it doesn't go through a firewall. North-south, the firewall is easy, but east-west is hard. All kind of policy management, it's not unified. That's pretty difficult here. So what we have today is secure workload, as an example. Secure workload talks to host-based, it works on host-based entities or hosts, okay, machines, VMs, et cetera. Secure workload can talk to networks that you can't touch besides just having a firewall at the perimeter. That firewall at the perimeter will sync up with secure workload, the policy engine there, so when you make a policy change, it automatically pushes the rule to the firewall. That's pretty cool. It also syncs up with cloud providers, AWS, GCP, Azure. When you make a policy change, it syncs up, and I'll show you. And all that at the same time, segmentation with PXGrid. Talks to PXGrid so it can ingest endpoint context. So you can now build a much granular policy. Am I going to allow my finance application in AWS to be accessed by a device, an iPad doesn't have MDM installed, right? That's the PXGrid. That's the context piece that PXGrid brings that allows me to ingest that in my policy engine to protect my application. Very, very granular here. And then I'll show you, like here's our secure workload. Anybody work with Cisco Secure Workload? Maybe, maybe not, okay. If you haven't had a chance, I mean, I think it's very cool. secure workload looks at, it's like a firewall rule policy of looking at your rules, and it's giving you hit counts. So it's got hit counts, and it's showing you the rules, and they give you some feedback, almost like a policy auditing of, hey, look, is that rule a broad rule on port 5660? Why is it broad? Well, you got a broad rule that does a broadcast of filtering, but it's only being used like 2% based on the amount of traffic that I'm seeing. Overall, it's like, well, is that too general? Do you need to lock it down? So we're trying to help you optimize policies that you're building at the application level here. So you can see here, it's just giving you a bunch of statistics. And then even rules like, hey, look, there's an overshadow rule that has never been used before, right? This is typical of firewalls, that there's rules that have 0 hits, get rid of them, right? So we give you all that stuff that you're used to, all that is part of the application protection here. And then even escape flows, right? Secure workflow, but ideal function is like, we baseline traffic. We know what's supposed to access your application, how backend systems are supposed to talk to each other. We lock it down. So when we see things like escape flows or rejected flows, that tells me that, hey, these are applications that are out of policy. Why is there a new transaction from another resource accessing here? It's blocked. Well, that means the user is not getting access or that server is not connecting. Okay, well, you look at the logs and you can say, okay, well, where are my escape flows? And you click on it and it gives you a policy suggestion. Do you want to allow this because this is an anomaly that we detected, whenever? So we're trying to make operations easier for you to control traffic and lock it down for zero trust. And ideally, once you baseline it, things get locked down, good, right? So you can just check for rejected flows, like, okay, are these bad guys trying to get access to my network? Is it getting blocked, et cetera? Okay? And then same thing with AWS. We extend these rules into AWS. I said earlier, if you want to push rules down to security groups in AWS, this does it all for you. So you don't have to manually log into AWS and go, this is my policy, these are the hosts coming in. We do it all within here. There's UIs that configures and all that for you. Okay. I'm just going to keep going here. Yeah, I have a couple minutes demo. It's sort of not that exciting. It just works here. Let's see here. I keep going. Come on. Okay. Clicker is not working. Let me just move forward. And the last piece is vulnerability management. Okay. You guys all know about Log4j. We all know about Log4j. And I think I saw a security report that Log4j is still out there. And one of our security reports was like, wow, a big chunk of customers out there in the market are still using Log4j, and they're still vulnerable. Like, wow, I thought we solved that problem. So it really comes down to vulnerability management. How do you patch your application? Can you patch your applications? And so leveraging secure workload, we can help you with that. Right? We can help you identify vulnerable applications. We give you a dashboard of all the CVEs. We prioritize them for you, because you can imagine, right, if you have a Qualys scanning, there's probably 15,000 CVEs that identify across your data center. And so we prioritize that for you, leveraging our Kenna technology that we have for risk rating here. And we point out the services that are vulnerable to that CVE. Right? So now it allows you to lock it down on, like, here's an open SSH vulnerability. Okay, there's an open vulnerability. What can you do? Now you can create a policy to block it at the host level, and which will buy you time to patch if you have to. Right? So leveraging network infrastructure to buy you time to patch that. Okay, how are you guys patching today? Or you're sort of patching today? Curious. Oh, okay.
How does that compare to ACAS? I imagine because it's native, probably, but does ACAS come close to what you out here?
Does
Tenable.
okay, yeah.
If you scan or the devices using
Oh, I see. Okay.
signature from NIST or whatever.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
Switches and routers or vulnerable PDs.
Okay. So the question from the gentleman is like, how does it compare to like Tenable scanning? And they all do the same thing. But it's basically vulnerability scanning. So vulnerability scanning is baked into our solution, into our secure workload. So it's not like I would never say, hey, look, use secure workload just for vulnerability scanning. It's just a bonus feature as part of securing down your hosts. So it's embedded in our solutions. There's no extra cost. If you have secure workload, you can leverage this. Or if you have Kenna, like Kenna by design ingest CVEs that you report from Tenable, any third party, right? And we help prioritize through our risk rating engine, sort it out for you. So it's doing what you have with your Tenable. If you're happy with your Tenable, keep it. Keep what you have. This is just an embedded feature in our solution. That's it. You were going to answer, or one of my questions, like, how are you guys doing about vulnerability patching? Okay, so you identify the patches, and you just schedule patching. You're getting it done. Great. I mean, and I hope we get it done because it takes a while. As I talk to customers, it takes them a while to patch anything. It takes weeks, months just to schedule. I'm like, why is it so hard? And a lot of it is like, we can't afford the downtime. So anyway, all right, so I'm going to summarize here. Wow, we're like 20 minutes early. I didn't think I was talking that fast, or unless I skipped a bunch of stuff here. So what did we talk about today here? We talked a lot about sort of the zero trust. I talked a lot of it about Salt Typhoon. Can I leverage zero trust capabilities to address my customer's Salt Typhoon problem? Okay. The problem is not solved, right? We're still working on it, and doing authentication, turning on additional layers, improving multi-factor authentication, improving radius, including TACACS. All those things are coming, right? And like the TACACS thing I was talking about, like TACACS is 8907, it's an RFC. It's been fairly solid. And if there's a vulnerability in TACACS, we're all vulnerable right now. If you're all using it, you're all vulnerable. And so like there are other things we got to look at instead of saying make TACACS more secure to solve the breach problem. We're not addressing the problem here. A lot of it has to do with identity, looking at user behavior, looking at how people are getting on the network, and that type of thing. So we talked about that. I don't know. I'm open to feedback. So we got a few minutes. Like, what would you have done differently with Salt Typhoon based on what I described to you? Is it a network problem, or is it an identity problem? I'm curious. Anybody say it's a network problem? Or an identity problem? Both. It's layers. We have some work to do on the Cisco side to make things more secure, but a lot of it's also identity as well. It's a combination here. Any thoughts? Anybody want? We have a few minutes left. Like, how would you address this? If my customer came to you and go, you have a problem, you need to fix this. And this went all the way up to Chuck Robbins, by the way, our CEO, right? So Chuck Robbins spoke with the customer and go, hey, we have the full force of Cisco behind this to solve this for you. And anything we can develop here can be leveraged by all the other ISPs across the world, right? It's not just one ISP, it's all of them, right? And it totally makes sense. So changing TACACS is not going to happen overnight. So we have to put other measures in place to try to resolve this. Anybody?
Systemic, or an admin problem, because
Okay, yeah.
you identified that a lot of the vulnerabilities could have been with the software that was already available.
Right, so
So I would want the problem. Hey, we provided you these security options, and you should have done to implement them.
yeah.
This is
Well, okay. So this gentleman says, so it seems a little more like a systemic problem, like the patch. The CVEs have already been announced, right? So just patch. Patch the CVE, no problems. But at least,
you left three big holes.
yeah, right. So it's a series of things, right? And Again, like in the beginning it was like, hey, Cisco, this is your problem. You got to do all these things. So we scrambled to try to do TLS and do RADSEC and all that stuff. But we like put the brakes on, like, wait a minute, are we really solving the root cause of the problem? We believe it's an identity problem. Something happened in the network. Could be a user, credential got compromised, somebody got in, and they've been there for weeks and months. I don't know, right? So, yeah, there's no silver bullet. There's a process involved here, and leveraging what I talked about today hopefully can help solve the problem going forward. Okay. All right.
That video that didn't play.
Oh, yeah.
So when it identifies that you have a user that is doing non-conform actions, is it forcing them to then re-authenticate the things that they've already logged into? Or is that already too late and they've already logged into them?
Yeah.
Now somebody who's doing something nefarious has access.
Yeah. So the question is, based on what I showed you, user trust and authentication, like if someone's authenticating on the network and they start doing bad things, is the network stopping them real time on the spot or re-authenticating them? That is the goal. We're not there today. Okay. The rapid threat containment one, like the firewall, like the IPS rule will trigger, like, hey, you're trying to do a cross-site scripting tool, IPS signature or launch. We turn on the blocking at the firewall, happens instantly. That's in real time. From an identity perspective, for me to tell the applications, right? When you do SAML authentication for all your web applications, they all point to an IDP. They all point to Entra ID. Well, so if Entra says, oh, wait, Jerry is misbehaving, is your Entra telling all of your applications, stop? No. Microsoft, I spoke with Microsoft last week. They said they've been working on a protocol called CAE, Continuous Access Evaluation, or CAPE, Continuous Access Evaluation Protocol. And the whole idea behind that, like the OpenID Foundation, they work on share signal is to do things in real time. Share signals across all these thousands of applications. When I detect bad behavior, I send a signal to that application like Box.com, WebEx, or OneDrive, or SharePoint, and then kick the user off or force them to re-authenticate. That's a much bigger task that the entire industry has to join. Think of all the application providers. Thousands of applications, they all have to support CAPE to do that. Right? So Entra can say, Microsoft can say, yeah, we support it if you're using a Microsoft application. But Box.com, Dropbox, YouTube, I don't know, Netflix, any other application, do they support that? The answer is no. It's going to take time for adoptions to happen. So we do what we can on the network side. Cisco switches, Cisco routers, Cisco firewalls, et cetera. We have our own signals, PX script, boom, we'll stop you instantly. But for a broader application, especially when you move into FIDO, it's open right now. That's the thing. So it's effort going on. Okay, so all right, I'm going to stop here. Thank you for being patient and listening to my story here. Hopefully this is useful, maybe, hopefully. And again, please fill out the evaluation. Hope to come back next time to share more stories with you. And have a good rest of Cisco Live.